أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's begin again in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Continuing on with Brother Igor's presentation of Surah Ṭāriq. This would be part 3. So if you're watching, please see our other videos for part 1 and 2. And of course, we have today Brother Awais and Brother Salmi and Brother Igor. Assalamu alaikum to all three of you guys. And yeah, take it away, Brother Igor.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
وعليكم السلام.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I guess we've been talking a bit about how in Surah Ṭāriq we have this idea of the pulsar star from modern science representing the Ṭāriq phenomenon. In part 2, we have this idea that actually throughout all of Islamic scholarship and mythology and human history, people have showed the morning star known as Venus to encapsulate basically the true identity of this phenomenon in the Quran. And now this part is kind of looking at the mechanics of what this star, morning star, planet Venus does. And to really get a good idea of how this works, you have to look outside of mainstream gravitational theory of the universe. And this idea has been around for quite a while, that the universe actually has electrical phenomena to explain what goes on in the heavens. And really the first guy to even suggest this was this guy, Immanuel Velikovsky. And he did the exact same thing. He was a psychoanalyst from Russia, and he looked at basically mythology around the world, accounting for a lot of instability going on in the heavens. And basically, he published this book called Worlds in Collision. And one of his central theses was that the planet Venus is actually more like a comet in its unstable form. This is very surprising for people because they're used to comets being these balls of dust that fly around in empty space. But really, what his ideas prompted was a whole different understanding of how the heavens operate. And you can see that there's this comet-like object pretty much every single time in every cycle of cataclysm and catastrophe that the world's cultures have documented. And they've every single time identified it with this goddess that has this kind of vengeance on mankind. So most of the strange events, this is his words, of the Exodus story, he actually contends that it's actually pointing to this Venus object in the sky that, like we understand that Ṭāriq to be a star that pierces and causes some kind of a damage on the ground. That Venus is actually not just a beautiful phenomenon, the most beautiful star in the night sky, but also the bringer of destruction as well. So the only way that the evidence could be reconciled from history and mythology with current scientific knowledge would have to be through this electromagnetic context to how things operate in our world. So in the bottom right-hand corner, these are just basically diagrams depicting how this could have looked like in the sky. Obviously, the authors of the electric universe theory contend a heliocentric model, but what's interesting is that they admit that gravitation cannot explain pretty much any of the phenomena that we're used to in space. And a lot of experiments done at, like for instance, Los Alamos Laboratory with plasma can pretty much recreate a lot of the artistic depictions we see in history from all kinds of civilizations regarding what went on in the heavens. So basically, they expanded on this theory, and there's a whole channel about it called the Thunderbolts Project. The idea of the thunderbolt in even mentioned in the Quran as well as as-sa'iqa. is a plasma phenomenon. And so they expanded on this idea because Velikovsky was, undoubtedly ridiculed for this idea of Venus being a comet. And they have shown that there is merit to this idea of past cycles of plasma discharge instability. So what is plasma? Basically, it's like a fire that you see in many different forms. It can be lightning, it can be the aurora borealis.
Charged.
Yeah, fire itself is actually plasma, superheated, charged particles of a gas. And this is fundamentally exactly what we see all the time, but we just never taught this idea in school. We only stop at gas. So you can see that even the Greek and Latin identification of Venus refers to something that is a comet with long hair. The tail of a comet is likened to long hair of a woman. For instance, in Greek, she was called Aphrodite Kometho. This is actually the direct translation. And this great comet, throughout history, even into modern times, is always thought of as this kind of herald that the world is going to end.
Sorry. Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Are you so you're saying that this is a Ṭāriq, yeah?
Yeah, because it has a dual nature, and the Ṭāriq we see in the sky looks very, pretty and shiny every night. But according to our history, this is a temporary state, and eventually, what it looks like is there's a punishment from the heavens that Allah brings every now and then.
It's almost like Venus is like a programmed destruction. Like it has destruction programmed within it that it comes along at certain times in history and causes cataclysm, causes catastrophe.
Right. It's known, like, for instance, the myth of the Gorgon Medusa with the hair of snakes around it. This is kind of like an explanation for electrical events, because even in ancient times, like in Egypt, they used snakes to symbolize currents that would come. We even see like depictions from these kinds of pioneers in scientific investigation reflecting the nature of Venus in the Quran, which is a piercing, which is like a kind of like a spear tip entering our realm. And if you go to the next slide, this introduces the idea of comets themselves having a profound impact on our world. So obviously comets have been observed pretty much all the time since ancient times, recorded by ancient cultures and religions, since they're observable to the naked eye. And the idea actually comes from Greek, which means long-haired star. Like I had mentioned for Venus, they called her the long-haired, or kometho, comet. And in 1872, I was looking at basically an alternative history of what people initially thought comets were before, the universities and the academic institutions were kind of bought and paid for after a while. It actually was published in 1872 in Scientific American by Professor Zollner in Leipzig, Germany, that they actually ascribed the self-luminosity of comets to electrical excitement. So there's no need for explanation that these are dusty ice balls hurling through space. They actually excite themselves, and they're electrical phenomena. They understood this over almost 200 years ago, before we had any idea of gravitation and relativity.
So
later on,
you're saying before the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and Carnegies revamped the education system, they knew, and it was agreed upon in conventional academics such as Scientific American, that self-luminosity of comets can be attributed to electrical excitement.
Yeah, because it's just like the news. You had a lot of, maybe hundreds of local newspapers, and they would report all kinds of different articles from the 1800s that would do our heads in today. because at that time, science was still not, like reined in as a, monopoly over what gets published. And it's very hard to find these quotes as well.
I think knowledge of plasma and plasmonic phenomenon, as well as there was deep knowledge about plasma in the past, and they mitigated plasma to being like some insignificant fourth state of matter after our education system was revamped and turned on its head.
Yeah, and it seems to have grown up and expanded upon these ideas in the past. In 1882, there was a understanding among physicists that comets light themselves, and the phenomena of their tails could only be explained by electricity or electromagnetism. This is completely alien to today's understanding of cosmology, in the sense that the space is a vacuum. There are no charged particles. This engineer by the name of Ralph Jurgens, he published a hypothesis that this doesn't actually stop at comets. This explains all of the celestial objects in the sky.
I was just thinking of saying this to you, that I have a book right now, and I'll send it to you later, that professes that even the human body is all electricity. It's
exactly,
it's bioelectric, and so much more significance would have been placed to like plasma or electricity in the past.
Absolutely,
rather than
I mean, the idea that in Arabic nur and nar are from the same root implies that there's a connection between them, especially when you understand fire is not just something you can burn. It's actually a fourth state of matter. So basically the sun has also been shown to have similar characteristics. The interplanetary medium has characteristics not only that the sun and the planets are electrically charged, the sun itself is the focus of discharge, probably the source of all its radiant energy. So what you see up in the sky, hopefully during sunset, is basically kind of like a concentration of this energy that we call the sun. And then, basically, even up until modern times, they have been bashing our heads with these comets heading towards Earth in the news and films. This is actually a poster from a film on Netflix a year or two ago called Don't Look Up. And it's a very interesting film because basically
Leonardo
the idea
DiCaprio?
is a comet. Yeah, exactly. And it comes towards Earth, and all the world scientists are warning the world about it. And then the other side of the political spectrum is saying, oh no, this is just like propaganda or something, right? So basically humanity gets divided into two over their imminent destruction. And, spoiler alert, the world is destroyed. So the idea is, this is in modern media as well, that they understand this is a sign of the end. We even have a comet heading towards Earth as we speak, apparently from the news, and it's actually called the Devil Comet. That will be arriving 2024, from what I understand. They started off with 2 horns, and then now it's turned a green color as well. So obviously we can't observe this, but the idea is they like to inform us of this in advance.
Yeah, but this is I'm guessing like one of many that they say, oh, there's one heading our way, and then we hear nothing afterwards, and then there's another one heading our way. Yep.
Exactly. It's kind of like, one of the founders of NASA, Wernher von Braun, who was a former Nazi, would say, like, I think he had revealed to his secretary before he died that they would have these stages of basically putting humanity into fear. The first would be terrorists, and then it would be comets or something like that, and then it would culminate in alien invasion. So comets obviously play a big role at some point, maybe not yet, but it's something they could easily threaten humanity with, just like nuclear weapons in a way.
The big threats, the big fears for humanity, right? The big ones.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest possible ones. Yeah, so basically it's a bit of
the Russian card was played. So the Russian card was played, and
Yes.
what we left with, the alien one and the
pretty much.
yeah,
I think
and this
comets
comet
probably
one.
yeah, they could probably utilize that as well.
Yeah, I can even see the story now. The aliens save Earth by destroying the comet.
Right. I mean, how the heck could we know the difference?
Exactly.
They could launch a nuke somewhere in the desert.
Or even what is that called? Those graphics that they did in China with the fireworks, and none of it was real. It was just all
yeah,
technology.
I forget what you're. Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so they could just easily use that, and we think it's all real. And
Project Blue Beam technology.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So
yeah, I mean, basically, it's a bit of some scientific jargon in that quote there, but this guy is one of the biggest researchers while he was alive that explained in the mechanism behind electrical phenomena in our sky. And yeah, it's very hard to prove this ice ball mainstream theory of comets, especially when you're going to see a lot of the evidence points to the opposite. The idea is like there's something going on up there that clearly we've been lied to about for good reason. Which brings us to the next slide, which is meteors. And it's interesting that a lot of the medieval artwork that you're going to see reflects this exact same thing. And we didn't even have, allegedly, a lot of the imaging that we have today, but it's very stunningly similar. That meteors are basically pieces of these comets that come down in showers. And we have a word for this in the Quran. You'll see in the next story after this slide, basically these fireballs, they're called bolis, which is interesting from our discussion the other time about how Baal worship is I forget what it's called, Beliology or Belomancy, right?
Oh,
so
and there's
this
another
is
one,
called this is called bolis in Greek. They actually use this word today, which means a missile or a flash. What does that sound like to you? A missile, right? From the sky coming down.
Right.
Something that is regime. Rujuman.
Yeah.
And maybe this is one of the functions of these this heavenly order, is to shoot down these shayateen as well. In the late 20th century, the bolide has also come to mean any object that hits Earth and explodes. So basically, it's a very general term, and you can see the scars all over the Earth of this phenomenon. The International Astronomical Union defines a fireball as a meteor brighter than any of the planets. One question, though, why do we not see any debris in any of these craters? And why are they always directly down 90-degree angle? There's no like oblate, or what would you call it, oblique kind of shooting of these meteors hitting Earth on impact. Well, one of the understandings, especially if you believe the Earth is not a globe spinning around helplessly, is that it's coming from directly above. And
obliquity, you mean
down,
obliquity?
Oh, sorry?
Obliquity.
Yeah. So basically, if these are falling stars, which Allah informs us about, some kind of stars that fall, some kind of what they call a shihab, it would make a lot of sense, because it's not just stones or ice or that combust in the atmosphere. It's actually energy. It's like pure energy. So you'd be hard pressed to find any debris. It's like a laser beam. This is the best analogy I can come up with. And in the top right diagram, this is actually a picture, allegedly, of what it looks like. You have a central part, and then there's like this particulates coming down from it. It's like almost like a dragon breathing fire. And it's directed in a certain direction as well. So these meteors are directly related to this phenomenon of comets, because the definition is that they are parts of this comet that come down. It's like they split. A lot of people believe the destruction of the people of Lut in the Bible is directly attributed to this. There was even a new video on an Islamic channel, popular one, that basically alleges they were destroyed by meteorites. But obviously, the standard explanation in mainstream science doesn't work, because the evidence shows this is a very precise phenomenon. It's not random. And there are electromagnetic phenomena at play. Imagine if you have like an energy weapon that's plasma, and you direct it anywhere you want on the earth. That would be just incredibly catastrophic. If you go to the next slide, this is directly what Allah talks about. These are some few verses from the Quran that I try to translate as best as I can. It explains exactly the function of the lowest heaven. It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and for certain we have placed in the heaven, so the lowest one, citadels. This is what Allah would call buruj. Buruj is often translated as constellations, but you just take the singular form of that word, burj. Everybody knows what a burj is. It's a tower, it's a fortress, similar idea. And we have adorned her for the observers, and we have protected her from every devil discharged. So in that picture, you can see these are some kind of dragon-like creatures that were how people depicted these comets and these fireballs, as if to say that they knew all along they're pelting these devils from the sky. In Surah 37, Allah says, indeed, we adorned the heaven of the dunya. So that's how you know what the heaven is. The heaven of the dunya, by an adornment of the wandering stars, and a guard from every devil insurgent. They listened not to the assembly of the superior. So these would be the angels that they tried to get information from. This is what the soothsayers and what the possessed people ultimately get their revelation from. And they are hurled from every side, expelled. And for them is a chronic punishment, except whoever abducted of the abduction, so followed him a piercing meteor. The idea is that this snatching of this information from the heavens is highly, highly important. It's a major crime that the jinn and the ins collaborate. Even in Surah Jinn, we get that the jinn actually admit that we touched the heaven. And then we found her assembled with severe sentries, so like watchmen, watchtowers, and meteors. And that we used to be seated from her positions, hearing. So whoever listens presently, for him is a meteor, ambushing. This word ambushing is what the Muslims actually are commanded to do, fighting the disbelievers at Masjid al-Haram. It's a war. Allah has this protected heaven, and He knows that these transgressors from the jinn and the ins, but particularly jinn because they have the capability of flight, is ongoing. And so it's not like hard for us to see why the cosmological model we're given, it doesn't even make any sense from the words in the Quran, because it seems like they switched everything. The heaven seems to be where all the activity is, and the earth is where everything is at rest. And so if you go to the next slide, that brings us to the story of Musa.
If I could just pause you and bring you back to the previous slide, because
yeah, for sure.
About a year ago, a major effort was made on the heavens from myself, and I'm just looking at what you've translated. So 15, 17. So first of all, Buruj. Am I right in understanding that they translate Buruj as constellations, if I remember correctly?
Correct.
But it's not.
Yeah, they do.
But it's not constellations, is it?
Well, it would either be constellations or it would be towers or something physical. Basically, it can't be both at the same time. You know, even in other languages that are not Semitic today, they would translate, like in German, you have Berg, right? And this is actually how Egyptians pronounce Burj, Berg. So it's understood to be a tower, fortress. In German, it means a mountain.
Burj Khalifa, Tower of...
Burj Khalifa is another one.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with you. I'm just wondering why they've put constellations, which, as far as I know, from what little I know, constellations are the connections, you know, the shapes, these what is it, the arrangements of the stars. So
well, I think it's it's kind of like out of necessity, because how are you going to explain castles in the sky with this current model? I mean,
now we're getting to it. Yes, I know you said citadels, because you said we play citadels, but now you're saying yes. Okay, I think I'm with you. Castles in the sky. This makes sense. Yep.
You know, I mean, it's
like
supposed to be a
waiting
protection.
to fire, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's you know, they're watching centuries. There are heaven is adorned for sure. Everybody can see that. But what we don't see is the solid part where the lowest heaven ends. And this is why it's protected, because apparently people are under the impression space is empty. That's never hinted at in the Quran. Space is, I mean, this is where water comes down. But before that, we have this barrier. And of course, that makes sense if you have on some kind of a solid barrier above our heads, you have some kind of a defensive measures. But if you're looking up at the sky and it's just, you're seeing it's endless, right? It goes on for the Big Bang, then
so is
you
this
have
the picture?
You have to make it.
Is this the picture of the Shaykh-Hamza that you've got there in the background?
Yeah, basically these are meteors, that how people depicted them in, you know, former times, as these kind of devils descending, dragons, with long tails, long hair. In many different ways, people's imaginations, but it's more in line with the Quran than what we're given, even though they're both made by human hands.
Okay.
So,
no, I just wanted to check your understanding of Buruj. No,
citadels is probably the best word I could use, because you know, qasr is usually used as fortress in the Quran. There's also another word for palace, like with Sulaiman, which I'm not too sure of, but Buruj, the idea of it is something that's fortified. I think I can find, let me just open up. I had like a slide for Buruj. I can show you all the concordances too.
No, that's fine. I'm just checking with you because I agree, and I think I'll be updating mine from what you've said.
Yeah, because it's endless, right? Like Barija is a warship. It's a battleship in Arabic. We get this word barge from it. A burj is a tower, a turret, skyscraper, fort, watchtower, control tower. You know, but obviously, it's funny because Barraja is a fortune teller in Arabic. So obviously, this is up in the sky. Barraj is a military checkpoint in Arabic. There's so many interesting things, and inshallah, when I finish the Arabic part of things, it'll be very clear that
No, this is
the case.
Fantastic. I'll be updating my work with this as well.
Well, that's what the nature of this work is. It's like, you know, it's constantly evolving. You know, you can't put all the blame on us for telling you what's wrong. We're starting to figure out what's right.
I had to return to the earth. Writing up the earth, because I thought I put way more effort into the heavens, and I didn't do the same due diligence with the earth. And now that I've done the earth, and now you're showing me, I still have to improve the heavens as well.
I mean, I don't have the clear picture either, because unless you go through all those words in Arabic, how they're used in the Quran, what they mean, their roots. It's a very like it could be a tedious process, but I think the work speaks it for itself, right? The evidences.
Yep. So I don't want to detract you anymore here.
Oh, no worries. In the last part, we talked about Ibrahim alayhis salam, and this kind of told us the mythology surrounding Venus. But now we go to Musa, and Musa alayhis salam, he has a story that's mentioned 3 times in the Quran in different ways. And I picked the part that relates to meteors. It's very strange that Shihab is mentioned as like a shooting star or fireball or like a flame. They don't even translate it as meteor. But let's just say that everybody agrees that's what it is. Well, in this story, they completely don't even give you any impression that's what Musa sees. So in chapter of the ants, when spoke Musa to his family, indeed I perceived the fire. I will bring you all from her by some information or by an incendiary meteor. He actually uses the word shihab. Why would, do you know how they translate this? They put it as torch. What is so special about a torch?
That's
oh,
right.
well, he's just going to get a fire and stuff. These are primitive people, right? They don't have anything. They're walking around in the deserts and stones and nothing. There's no life to be seen. Well, Allah tells us something different. He's very precise with his words. If he's saying this shihab is pelting devils, then I'm going to be very interested when Musa is going to bring one. And he says, so perhaps you warm yourselves. So when he was brought to her, the shihab, he was summoned that blessed, so this is Allah's words apparently, or maybe an angel. Blessed is whoever is in the fire and whoever is around it. And exalted be Allah, Lord of the worlds. O Musa, indeed I am Allah, the Aziz, the Hakim. This is so important to understand. I have mentioned that Nur and Nar are intimately connected. And now you can see that this star that fell is actually called An-Nar. Why did Allah call this An-Nar? Because there's only one other thing, pretty much 1 or 2 other things he calls An-Nar. One of them is Jahannam. The idea we get is An-Nar, these kind of stars that come down, is equivalent, if not the same substance and constitution as Jahannam. And so it's very fitting that this is what is used to protect the heaven from devils. And what's interesting about this is Allah says that whoever's around it is blessed from this fire. This is exactly the same spot where Musa is tested with his staff. His staff turns into a creature. How on earth can we explain in this story how it became like that? Well, there's something about this fire that's very different. And I won't get into the whole story because it's a bit off topic, but basically this blessing is radiating something. Musa is around it. Remember, his hand comes out white and his staff becomes a serpent? Well, this is an explanation why. There's a cosmic substance he is exposed to. And it's mentioned 2 other times to give you more information, I would imagine. So Musa traveled by his family. He perceived from a side of the Tur a fire. He spoke to his family. I perceived the fire, so perhaps I will bring to you all for some information or embers. So the first quote is exactly where he uses the word shihab, but because it's talking about the same story, you can understand that he's telling you where it's happening. So it says, the valley of the righteous in the blessed plot from the tree. O Musa, I am Allah, the Lord of the worlds. This is so important that Allah introduces himself via this event to Musa. And then he says how he perceives a fire as well. Bring you in an incendiary. I find upon the fire a guidance. How could you find guidance from a fire? We're told that
So
this
this
in the
torch,
Bible is a
sorry,
burning bush.
so this torch, yeah, so this torch, I mean, it wasn't a torch, basically. You're saying that it's something special, and you said that's why Nar and Nur are connected, right?
This is the fire.
Right, this
The
is the
fire is
fire.
only one thing.
And I'm not familiar with the verses, but did you just say that blessed? So it says, blessed is whoever is in the fire. That sounds strange, right? But so
Yeah, it does
therefore,
sound strange.
yeah,
And whoever's around.
yeah,
So I would imagine that whatever happened with his staff, is Allah tells him in first person, throw down your staff. It becomes a snake. Clearly, this object with him, as well as him, I would argue, is affected by this radiation or whatever is there. We don't have any understanding in Islamic discourse, as well as from the Bible, how these miracles happen. And I would imagine that Allah knows perfectly well the physical laws that are not supernatural at all. This is just how reality works. We just don't understand how a staff can become a serpent, how a clay bird can become alive. These are signs that Allah is one. This is not denying the miracle at all. This is an ancient, deep knowledge about our world. And the Quran directly shows you and associates how it may have happened. This is a direct story of humans coming into contact with this Shihab. And what's interesting too is there's so much about the story that is misleading, because obviously we get our context from the Bible and the burning bush. But the burning bush in the valley of Tuwa is not just simply some bush on some mountain. This is like something we've never seen before. This is, I would argue, not in the Sinai Peninsula we know of today. But basically the idea is we have in the Quran some idea of the intensity of these shuhub. In fact, the word shihab is related to ash, to whiteness, like when someone's hair turns white with age, because the devastation Allah sends on like the nation of Lut that you see pictured in the screen is similar to what we've seen in that picture from modern science. There's a comet, and then there's an array of projectiles directed at a city. So the angel saves him and his daughters, but not his wife. And apparently she turns to stone as well. So there could be some idea there that this is a harbinger of destruction, right? But you know, we're still trying to figure out exactly what this is, because we have no indication from science, and definitely not religion in its modern sense, why Allah is talking about this.
So can I ask you, I'm pretty sure you, I mean, you're very familiar with a lot of the information and the material that we've been looking at over the last few years, or maybe even the last decade, in terms of correcting our perception of this world, you know, relearning everything. And part of that is there seems to be this area where people are obsessed with looking at the skies, but in a very in a way where they still believe in the globe, and they believe in what is it? There used to be people that used to connect the coming of Mahdi with, what is it? The which star? I can't remember. They used to connect that. They used to say that, look, this is a sign that the Mahdi is coming. And then you've got even the Christians, you know, they look at the night sky and they say that, you know, people make things up with the connection of, you know, what they see in the night sky. So what I'm asking is, are you saying that there is something about a sign for us, you know, because this is a harbinger of destruction, right? That a Ṭāriq, that's what you're saying. A Ṭāriq is the harbinger of destruction. But until it is given that task to do that, it stays as this beautiful, bright light. Is that right?
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like, because, you know, when I finished the Arabic investigation, basically this entity called Ṭāriq, as Brother Imran rightly said, it's related to the word tariqa and tariq. Is the only instances of this root in the Quran. So I would imagine for the believers, this is a positive thing. is a very positive thing. It's actually associated with the very end of our world. But for the disbelievers, it should be very, very frightening to them, because
Okay,
Allah
so we can now
describes
read
how.
this surah. Okay, so we can read this surah now with this information and start to understand this surah better now. Okay, I get
Yeah,
you.
because
Yeah.
I never understood. I mean, I had this strange feeling. What does verse 4 mean?
Mhm.
If it's a piercing star, like I thought piercing is something good, and then it's being there's no soul without a protector over it. What is this protector? And how is it linked to the piercing star? So, as Brother Igor has just mentioned, that it's there to protect against the devils, right?
Right.
And, I mean,
Of
even
course.
right. And even at the end of this, it's talking about those who plot and plan,
Yep.
right?
Right.
So
It,
So
if I
basically,
may
this
say
part,
so, Brother Igor, it seems to me like a Ṭāriq is basically a civilization resetter. Like,
Yeah.
when a civilization gets out of hand, it is launched basically or brought into play, and then it instructs cataclysm, and then from one civilization is destroyed because of its sins, and then basically from the ashes of the phoenix, as they say, another
Right.
civilization rises. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
this
like
is
if
from the Quran.
Brother Sami, look, like as what you're saying, right, is pretty much what the verse 5 down here
Yep.
says, right? Because it's saying here, like Allah saying, look, consider what you're made from. You're made from a
Absolutely.
fluid. Like this is what you're made from, and
Yeah,
you're aiming to be so high,
so much.
so much. You're trying to be, you're trying to overtake mankind with your plotting and planning and this and that. When I have one star up there that can completely obliterate you.
And then look
Right.
at verse 11. It's like so poetic, if I may use that word, mashallah. By the sky that returns, like
by the
it's
heaven,
like
By the
heaven that
heavens,
returns.
by the heaven that
yeah, by the heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And this decisive word, Allah alludes to the fact that the word has fallen upon them. So that's clearly showing perhaps something from the heaven above our heads. Even the idea that the day the secrets are disclosed, he will have no strength and no supporter. In the story of Lut alayhi salam, he's told not to look back with his daughters at the destruction.
That was always interesting to me. Yeah, why do you think that is?
Is that the biblical story? That's the biblical story.
This is in the Quran as well.
Oh,
I think in the biblical story, but
yeah.
Yep, the angel instructs him. The angels instruct him, do not look back. This is a must, you and your daughters. Imagine like he has to go through this. He's told his wife is going to be destroyed, I guess, to leave her behind. That his entire civilization, everything he knew, was going to be destroyed in the night. It's amazing that the angel is telling him this. It's like, listen, you have to go by night, by morning, they're going to be toast. And why does he instruct them not to? Yeah, literally. Why does the angel instruct him and his daughters to not look back? If this is a piercing star.
Yeah, I would argue it was just, that you listen to the word of God.
Well,
right?
yeah. Definitely.
You completely submit.
No doubt.
Without even,
no doubt.
Without being tempted to look back, right?
For sure.
Yeah, but like I'm tempted to ask what would be the repercussions of, like, physical repercussions of looking back.
His wife.
That is something that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're saying, Brother Igor. I hear Brother Imran as well. I think you could see it in both ways. Without looking too deeply, you can see it as don't look back, as in how we're always told. Don't hesitate. Follow the command. Don't change. Don't even hesitate. That's a simple way. But I think you're right. If you look deeply, you're right. This is something so incredible, so amazing, so horrific. It could be so damaging that it could be on a double level, that if you look back, you might actually be harmed.
You be traumatized to the extreme.
I I think, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think even physically, because what Allah talks about.
Looking back could even be like you start to develop some sort of sympathy for the sufferers of this punishment, and Allah doesn't want you to have any kind of sympathy for those people, you know?
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. What I'm basically getting at is, you know, in the biblical account, officially his wife turns to a pillar of salt, to a stone. And I think that the nature of this phenomenon is alluded to in the Quran as making them blind, the people blinding their eyes. So the people of Lut, right? It specifically mentions we obliterated their eyes for what they tried to do with the angels, right? And it's almost like analogous to the Day of Judgment. They will wander blindly. Why? Well, there's this fajr. And I'm wondering, is this a microcosm event of the last day? Similar to the flood, similar to Musa's story, similar to Ibrahim's story. Are we giving hints about, on a mass scale, hey, remember that story you mentioned? Now it's going to be very important for you, right? For the
That was actually going to be my question, but I forgot to ask that question. Are you saying that this Ṭāriq is something that we, you know, because obviously people are, wherever you are in the world, clearly there's a talk about the end of the world. Yeah, whether you're an atheist or even a religious person, there's obviously talk of the end of the world, destruction of the world. So are you saying that this Ṭāriq is significant for us believers to be given warning signs?
It's incredibly significant. There's no coincidence that Shuhab means ash in that root as well. That just reduced to ash the whole world. And you know, they put this in front of your faces as well. There's a new Disney movie for kids, and they show you exactly this phenomenon. A young maiden wishes for a star upon a star from a great tree, no less. And this star is the brightest one in the sky. And it answers her by shooting out a sword of energy. And the whole land, the whole kingdom is lightened, like in the night sky. You can look it up. There's a trailer for this movie called Wish.
From, huh? Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I was talking about this before the trailer dropped, and I'm thinking that, well, hang on, this is exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Is this a blinding light? Is this why the disbelievers, they go upon the road to hell because they're blind? Is this why, you know, there's so many questions that arise because when you take off the modern understanding, that frees you a bit, so you can see maybe there's more to it. There's more to it than we thought. It's not just an isolated event. It says Qawm Lut, not Al-Qawm Lut. So
those two images
we have,
Brothers Imran is showing right now, basically that's exactly what it is.
That's the one. That's the one. And you know, the idea is it's piercing the heavens. Like a sword. I'll show you. There's a flaming sword analogy that people have shown.
Now you're not going to get any of this in the Bible, now, are you?
Absolutely not. No. And maybe for good reason, because people understand this, they can prepare for it, right? But yeah, clearly this fire, and even there's a small star in the film that comes out as well, like a little star that follows her around, just like a shihab. It's conscious. It's it has effects on the world. It makes animals talk. It makes things grow. They know this stuff. I know they know this stuff, but they're not teaching it. I'm gonna go to the next slide. This deals more with meteorites.
So when people like Elon Musk turns around and says on Twitter that he's been reading the Quran, we know what that means, yeah. Even though the masses will take that, you know, even when the masses take that as, you know, oh, he might, you know, this, our Iron Man might become Muslim, you know, the idiots would say,
man.
you know.
Honestly, we're a bit naive. We're pretty
Yeah.
naive as an ummah to
Yeah.
assume that these people have anything to do with the truth.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that, I mean, Elon Musk is one of the most the biggest liars in history.
Yeah.
He's
But what I'm saying is,
fork-tongued.
exactly. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that you're showing that, you know, through these animations that they know what we have in the Quran. So it's like this small percentage at the top, this elite, or am I right in saying, ya ma'shar al-jinn wal ins? You know, this
There you
small
go.
portion.
There you go. Collaborating.
That they know the Quran, but their hearts are deviated, they're blocked, they're covered. So they know, but knowing is not enough. They see it in a flipped version to how we see it. We see it as, you know, like believers, we prepare for it, and they see it in a very how can you put it?
They are the enemy, basically.
Demented way.
They are the enemy.
Yeah.
They also
They are
try to
the transgressors that are mentioned in Surah Rahman. It's them. It's these people.
Yeah, and they try to exploit this knowledge as well for their own worldly gain, knowing full well that 99% of people have no idea.
Just like how you showed us Surah Ṭāriq, and then they go and they put it in a Disney movie. What kind of respect is that, right? So they're just basically leveraging it for their own financial gain.
There's a perfect word. I mean, they leverage the Quran to align with the fake science, like with NASA. You know, Apollo 11 matches this from the Quran. Oh, look at this. Oh, wow. So that's what they do. That's why they read the Quran, not to learn, rather to use the Quranic code for their basically constructs,
or to change people's perspective of of what it actually means.
Because they're not cluing us in. They're just mocking our children that are exposed to this media on purpose to confuse their fitra at an early age, because the children know from the get-go these things are real. These things in fantasy and science fiction, they're real. But why do they only give it in children, all this truth? Because they have to get their attention. You know, Disney is all about capturing your imagination, right? And you see it all throughout children's programming. There's so much from the Quran. There's even like random Chinese movies where they'll put like a lantern in the scene and it goes all the way up to the sky and has to go through water until it gets to a giant tree. I mean, they know how the world is set up, and they just mock these people. These people are very evil people. They're mocking the children and the parents of the children, knowing full well that they're going to grow up to believe something completely different. And
so it all starts at a young age. The magic? Yes, is this the magic? They place these magical blocks in people's eyes and minds, and the only way that the magic doesn't work is if you are informed of what you're looking at. Is that what
there you
it is?
go?
That's exactly what it is. That's how magic works. Magic doesn't
if you don't know the trick,
you know how the trick exactly.
Right.
So
if,
brings
like,
us to the
for
next
example,
slide.
if somebody's doing a sleight of hand, and you're watching his hand, and you know which hand is gonna snatch the coin out of the other hand, then you know that's how it works. But somebody with like a child, like, oh wow, it actually disappeared. So they've changed the perspective. So
they're
tough one
trying
tough one for the parents and the children.
It is.
You teach your children exactly what it is, but then you're outcasting them from their group.
Well, this is the nature of the world. It's
that is absolutely.
The messengers being rejected en masse. The people of Musa, his Bani Israel, Allah informs us that most of Bani Israel were afraid of Fir'aun, and only the ones that followed Musa were some youths from his people. That's it. Imagine that. It's like you show all these signs, and this is the thanks you get. This is what you get in return. So I wanted to just touch on this point of meteorites, because this is a very well-known phenomenon. And this is talking about solid material coming from the sky, because obviously it's not just one thing. What actually comes from the heavens is a myriad of things. Allah explains that water comes from the heavens, iron comes from the heavens. So much of our understanding is completely at odds with what Allah describes. These meteorites are still venerated as sacred objects throughout the ages and to this day. When you have a meteorite, you have huge amount of light and as well as sound phenomena, which you can hear, like, I think it's called a sonic boom, or you know what I mean? Like it's actually a physical event. And what actually comes from a lot of these events is pure, like almost 100% pure iron. This is actually very rare on Earth. And everyone will tell you iron is extraterrestrial. So it's not inconceivable why meteorites are so coveted by ancient civilizations, like Tutankhamun in Egypt. He had an actual dagger made from meteorites because it was not only just keeps its edge, but it's very rare. It's a symbol of wealth. Have this. Probably has some other effects we don't even understand as well. You know what they call meteorites in Hebrew? Beitels. And in Greek, it's beitilia. This means literally residence of God. Beit Allah.
Wow, subhanallah.
Okay, so this is not a new thing. When they tell us about these ancient civilizations of pagans and Jews and Persians and everything, it's all a lie, because what it seems like is they're just hiding this main story that the Quran is informing us, because the Quran doesn't mention any of these civilizations. It mentions very specific ones, and this is what it seems is going on. Why are meteorites in Hebrew and Greek called the house of God? Well, you know, in the story of the Bible where Yaqub is supposedly the ancestor of Beni Israel, he puts his head on this very stone. It's called a Beitel stone, Beit Allah. In his sleep, he has a vision of a stairway leading to heaven. The story says that Yaqub was in full awe when he awoke, and he built a temple around that stone. What does it sound like to you? I mean, to me, it sounds like the Kaaba. In fact, we're told in Islamic narrations that Kaaba stone, the black stone, came from the sky. We're also told that.
So this story in the Bible seems to match what we see in Makkah, the Kaaba. Okay.
Yeah, because most people agree, even Western historians, that the black stone is from meteorite.
Yes.
And it's interesting too that, like, one of the possible explanations for the secret of Damascus steel is they used meteorites in manufacturing it, which is incredibly, it's hard to find that purity of iron. So this is why the stone is black, because you're talking about something that's not from this world. And of course, they're calling them house of God, right? I mean, that's not a coincidence, you know? Even that stone.
So it's not that it was white and it became black because of everyone's sins.
I mean, that you can debate that either way. I don't know either way, but the idea is,
I'm just asking.
You know, the other ones are black. So iron is associated with black typically. Magnetic stone, right? Iron is a very magnetic stone. And that explains a lot of these Hajj rituals, because magnetism is rarely put into the equation of tawaf and going around the Kaaba. Well, you can do the same thing, and you take a magnet and you put it around some ants, and they will go around it as well. And it's also a black stone as well. You know, what's interesting is this stone that Yaqub in the Bible rests his head on is actually what's underneath the coronation chair of every monarch of England for hundreds of years.
Mm.
Why is it's called the Stone of Scone? Because it
The
originates in
stoner?
Scotland.
The stoner?
Scone,
Mm.
S-C-O-N-E.
Yeah. I think I know what you're on about. I remember from the Arrival series. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the Arrival series. They were like
Yeah.
the big the Awakening series. Although they got a lot wrong, but they awakened people's eyes to a lot of truth as well.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about what we see, the Queen of England,
Yeah.
all of that stuff
And now
that she's
king
holding
too.
in her hand, and the king.
So basically, they know there's something to this, right? They wouldn't just carry around these things for no reason.
Yeah.
A huge triangular stone actually landed outside Alsace, Germany, back in the Holy Roman Empire days. And people actually chipped off the stone for pieces for good luck talismans. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend you do that. But the idea is people understood very well there's something very special about this material. And this is why people wish upon stars. Stars have this enigmatic air to them. We don't understand what they are. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, like a diamond in the sky. And we know this as kids, and we agree with it, but we never reflect after the fact. What on earth were we singing and learning?
Yep.
So I just want to add that solid material falling from the sky, because the stones of baked clay idea in the Quran, I wouldn't put it as baked clay, but there is something to solid material falling from the Quran. Allah says we made that the tallest part of the city the lowest. So, was the earth petrified after these events? Is that what's going on? Who knows? We're just trying to figure this out. I'm not saying either way, but clearly meteorites are related to this falling from the sky phenomenon. The sky is falling, right? We understand this. How could the sky fall in all these fairy tales? Well, it's physical. It's solid. Allah says it's a roof. Even Sam Garins, put it very nicely that the sky is solid at a certain point. The next slide, if it's not already clear that this is some kind of a weapon, this is how people depicted it. This is the piercing star. It's a comet. It's a wandering star. And obviously, if you go back to ancient times, they had a totally different perspective on all these phenomena.
Okay,
if you
so
look at
comets
Aristotle,
comets exist, but not what we're taught as comets. Right.
Oh yeah, it's something totally different, but they exist. We observe them. We have history of them. We have mythology about them. All kinds of stories, eyewitness accounts. It would be hard to fake something like that. So we have to figure out what's the explanation in this model. Aristotle theorized that, of course, the Earth was the center of the universe. It was surrounded by other planets and stars. The universe, or better known as the heavens, filled the void above the terrestrial atmosphere with something that we have excluded from our physics, which is called ether.
Yep.
This is a direct understanding from history. Hippocrates and Aeschylus, they believed a similar thing. They both believed comets were planets. Interesting. We would never say this today. They had special properties, and the comets are planets that have produced an immaterial tail from the atmosphere. So it's actually from this field that occupies the space around us. We can't see it. Other philosophers in Rome, like Seneca, believed comets came from the celestial region of the universe. Firmly opposed Aristotle's theory that comets were formed from the element of fire. So whatever they disagreed upon, it still has no relation to what we're told today. And you can take this with a grain of salt. Whether these people lived in the Middle Ages or in the past, the idea is we have an idea that they existed in some form. And why did they say these things is the question. Seneca the Younger said that comets move regularly through the sky and were undisturbed by the wind, behavior more typical of celestial than atmospheric phenomenon. Celestial means star. He conceded that the other planets do not appear outside the zodiac, yet saw no reason that a planet-like object could not move through any part of the sky. Why are these planets being purported to be so close to us? I thought they're supposed to be millions of miles away. Well, evidently they are close to us, and they have a profound effect on us for that very reason. Remember I showed you in that other part that the Star of Bethlehem, depicted in artwork, is actually a comet.
Right.
It's shown as a comet, so that has to be explained. People are not just imagining things all the time. They will not, if you believe, that the birth of Jesus Christ, Isa, is a profound event, you're not going to fabricate something in there, especially when at that time, most of the things that we're lied to about today were still common knowledge. So this idea of this fiery breath or fiery tail coming down from this star, these are all depictions of comets, by the way. You can look on the bottom two, pictures. It's actually a sword covered with fire in the sky. These are depictions of comets, not necessarily what they look like, but their effect, their function. What is more piercing than a sword?
Right.
And fire in the sky. And I just put this idea of a dragon breathing fire because this goddess in ancient times was called a dragon in these events.
Okay,
it's like a beam of energy.
So there's this connection to a fiery sword, and even like the dragon breathing fire from the heavens above, from above us. Yeah. Okay, so you're connecting all of these tales that have elements of truth, and the actual truth is this is a Ṭāriq doing this. Yeah.
Right. This is the only thing in the Quran that's given a surah to its name, and it's described as piercing. And the only other thing that's described as piercing is Shihab.
And the
so they're connected. And the protector, even you can, like a double-edged sword, right? This idea that you can defend and you can attack, and it produces a road from it as well. There's some kind of a metaphysical idea of like a path formed, right? So to conclude the presentation in the next slide, the Ṭāriq in the Quran has very little to do with modern cosmology, pulsars and black holes and all of that. Venus is the only celestial body from wandering stars which fulfills the Quranic account of the Ṭāriq. Information from history, mythology, astronomy, world religions, they all attest to the compatibility of Venus as the most important heavenly body after the sun and the moon. We saw that in the Ibrahim story. The principles of modern scientific theories and alleged accomplishments, they are in direct conflict with the knowledge in the Quran. We get this holistic understanding of the universe's electric nature and plasma phenomena. It goes hand in hand with the historic electromagnetic instability, leading to Allah's divine punishment. The story of Ibrahim and Musa highlight these intimate connections between meteors, Venus, comets, brightly piercing through the lowest heaven of the dunya. And like the sun and the moon, this comet Venus has formed unique reverence, both in awe and fear, in mankind's fascination. And there's been an original, unbroken pattern of tritheistic polytheism as a result. Meteorites have also been the subject of veneration across human culture. We can see that the stones themselves are called the house of God. Falling stars, shooting stars. What does it mean to shoot something? It's a projectile. Obviously, the heaven, as we understand from the Quran, the lowest heaven of the dunya, is clearly fortified. It's solid. And its immense beauty is protected. Its zina is protected from these devils that try to touch the heavens and trespass these regions. And this phenomenon is in the Bible and all mythology as a cast down angel or God or Lucifer, who likely it developed from this legend, from this story. I mean, this idea reflects so much of our world, of our past. We just forgotten. We just pretend like it doesn't exist. And you know, the heavens are analogous to the modesty of a woman in the Quran. You want to cover what's apparent of a woman's adornment. The same word is used, the zina of a woman, the zina of the heavens. There's a protection, there's a barrier there. Not everyone is allowed. Nobody's allowed to touch the heaven. It's a similar idea. It's amazing, the poetry of it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's very interesting that you bring that up, because this is the same conclusion I came to last year when studying the heavens. And I was actually a bit afraid to say it, because I thought, you know, there's a lot that we're taught within mainstream Islam that, you know, you shouldn't speak like this about Allah, or you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say such things. And but it was very clear. It was very clear to me that Allah is describing, the heavens as being something basically pure and impenetrable, like a chaste, like a chaste woman, essentially.
Absolutely.
Because the same, like you said, the same word is used, the same descriptions, are used.
Zina is adornment. Zina is an intimate aspect of.
You're on about the furuj, the farjaha, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's modern words to describe that in Arabic, but basically, what Allah has ordained in this world is that the pure things are protected, or should be protected in our case. And this is better. This is Sabil Allah. This is exactly. I mean, obviously, in the creation, we're going to have parallels with our own bodies, with our own lives.
So what do you make of the phallus-shaped rockets that they say are going into space? Now that we've just said what we've just said,
the idea is, when you put it like that, I mean,
it wasn't me. It was. I'm gonna say that this came from a Maulana. Yeah, when I first said this came from a Maulana. So if anyone tries to attack me, it came from a Maulana.
No, definitely not. I'm not suggesting that, but you know, it's an interesting concept, right? Like for instance, Elon Musk, his rocket is called Falcon Heavy, and if you just listen to how they pronounce that word, saying it very quickly, you can ascertain what that's all about. It's very disgusting.
What was the Amazon guy's name? His rocket
Bezos.
Bezos.
It's
blue something.
Blue
Horizon. Blue Origin.
Virgin. Wasn't it Blue Virgin?
No, I think you're on about the other guy, Richard Branson. He's got
the other one is Virgin. You're right.
Richard Branson.
Yep. Exactly.
And they all do the same thing. They all have the same kind of video floating in their little crafts and just showing us basically nothing outside.
Nothing outside. It's pretty obvious. They just kind of, a lot of them, they will actually kind of skim something up there. It looks just like you're skipping a stone in a pool of water. But as far as we know, there's nothing going up there. Nothing. So it's really symbolic of them. They know, I think, on some level, they can't do anything about it, but they have to keep the illusion of it. That's the amazing thing, is they're willing to go through that much to fool us, give us a fake idea of the world. So hope you enjoyed the presentation. That's the fun part. The more boring part is still underway, but inshallah, diving into the Arabic is going to give us way more profound ideas of why this is a reality for us. What is the ultimate destiny of humanity with the Ṭāriq? The only way to figure this out is to look at the root of the word and understand how it's used throughout the Quran. And tariqa, tariq, Ṭāriq, all these words are highly related. And I'll just give you a teaser that Ṭāriq is used in the Quran for a road.
Mhm.
We have a road for the kafirin and zalimeen. We have a road for hells.
Or you can even say tariqa sounds like track.
Yeah,
Mhm.
tariqa is like a methodology. It's like a metaphysical road, a way. But tariq is like something you walk upon. It has like a literal meaning to it. They both go hand in hand, obviously. And when Bani Israel were fleeing Fir'aun, Allah tells Musa alayhi salam, set forth for Bani Israel a road in the sea, al-Bahr. The believing jinns, they say that they've heard a book, the Quran, after Musa, that guides to the truth and to a straight road. This is
What's the Arabic? What's the
Tariq
Arabic for that one? A straight? What's the Arabic?
Straight road. So Ṭāriq al-Mustaqim.
Or it could hearken to the piercing nature of the tariqah, like it pierces the message, just like a Ṭāriq, it pierces, right? So this message.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very important topic because if I was talking about salvation for Bani Israel and also damnation for the kuffar that go on the road to hells, we also given an idea of Sirat al-Mustaqim, and we're also given an idea of Tariq al-Mustaqim. You can see that there's something going on here, and it's still yet to be determined with Allah's permission. But yeah, this is inshallah the last part of the presentation, because obviously this has implications for us. You can see what happened in the past. It wasn't a pretty sight, and clearly we don't want to have the same fate. So we have to, understand the stars are used for guidance, and the guidance is upon the road. And we know that even the Prophet ﷺ made a Isra and Mi'raj. And we know that Sirat al-Mustaqim in Islamic tradition is a bridge to salvation. So in my mind, preliminary idea is that this Ṭāriq is associated with our salvation, as believers. And the mechanism of that is still not clear, but this is very prominent because there's no coincidence. It's related to a road or a methodology, because these things are ultimately what Islam is about. Guide to the Sirat al-Mustaqim. This is in Surah Al-Fatiha. Guide us. This is literal. Guide us to the Sirat. And yeah, it's very deep stuff.
It is definitely. It's what you're doing. I definitely can't do, so I appreciate what you're doing. Yeah, this is fascinating stuff, and yeah, I look forward to the next one as well, because the more that we do like this, it's even if we don't get all of it, because I think this is the nature, and maybe many people will agree with me, or at least a few. But yeah, the nature of this material is that you do have to review it again and again, and you have to think about it again, and it just keeps adding and filling in more to other areas that we didn't quite get before, and now we get because we've made this effort. So alhamdulillah, Allah reward you for this.
The Quran is like, it reminded me of when brother Igor was saying that Buruj is citadel, and then you had to say, brother, always that you need to go and revise your work. The point is, the Quran is a living book. It lives on. The message is living. It's
absolutely.
Yeah. It is alive. Absolutely. Yeah. It's alive.
It's alive. Yeah.
It's not a historical document as some people would like to say it is.
Absolutely
not completely. No.
Yeah. Not completely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to thank brother Igor here for this video about Surah Ṭāriq, which showed that the pulsar star is just complete nonsense, and sticking to the word is the key to all of this. And be mindful that you can only be deceived through numbers, through false narrations, and and it's really it's sad, because how many people think that Surah Ṭāriq has something to do with the pulsar star, right? Like I showed you guys like that Digital Ummah's videos, half, I think, what is it, 500,000 views.
Yeah.
And how many people's perspectives have changed, and it's
I really, it's really annoying how people just can't add up that the same people who are giving you all of these lies and killing you are the same people who validate the Quran for you. Doesn't that raise questions that this information, it could be false? But as Brother Igor says, the Ummah is so naive, and so, I would say, they're so quote unquote innocent, that and naive, like a child, that they run with the first sign of approval. Oh, look, we have approval. It's we're on the right path.
The sad thing is that it's I heard Baba Shoaib say this in conversation with Dr. Omar Zaid, and I think we'll all agree on this. This is how we kind of resonate with each other, is that we look deeply into things. So what you just mentioned, people take it because they don't go deeper, they look on surface level, and this is where we kind of suffer to some extent and get rewarded at the same time, because we go deep. And that is where the treasures are. That is where the gems are, and that is why. So, like Brother Imam was talking off recording about the conversation he had with that couple, you'll find some things that people will agree with you. Oh no, this is obviously nonsense, and we don't agree with that. But as soon as you've gone just a little bit too deep for them, then that's it. Yeah, it's like no, that can't be the case. So that's what it is with this Quran. Alhamdulillah, the Quran validates that it is all about being a deep thinker in this world. Alhamdulillah, that's what. Yeah, that's another thing that the Quran does. It validates that.
Fikr as opposed to
what you mentioned. What you mentioned yesterday, that resonated. I was thinking about this morning. How did you put it? The mutation of. I knew that. Fikr or tafakkur, was connected. Well, it was connected to or closely related to kufr, but obviously the opposite. You got me thinking about shukr and shirk. I never thought of that one. Being grateful, and the mutation is associating partners with Allah. And I thought, wow, that's another one. So you got kufr and fikr, reflecting and doing kufr, and shukr and shirk. Amazing.
It's even deeper than that too, because our bodies are created to submit to Allah, whether we like it or not. That's why everything exalts Him. Everything. If you are in shirk, if you're in kufr, unfortunately, this has an effect, a physical effect on you. We can't even understand how. On your genes, on your cells. These things are reflective of what Allah created to serve Him. And basically, it's just a little mutation of that idea. These words created the universe. This Arabic root words, they created the universe, kun fayakun. So being in shirk, you're going to see a lot of problems arise eventually, and you want to correct that way before it's too late, right? It seems that every iteration, every generation gets worse. And as people go on through life and they get older, they reach a certain point where the damage is done. It's an unfortunate reality, but Nabi Nuh, he saw this firsthand. 40 generations he saw this. So he has this knowledge that the genes corrupt, mankind corrupts, unless you're a believer. And this is what Ibrahim, why he had to leave his people. And his reward was his sons being prophets. He repaired his DNA. He repaired generations of kufr and shirk just by working on himself, making the next generation better, right? This is ultimately what you're talking about. Fikr, thinking, kufr, disbelief, arrogance, rejection, shirk, idolatry, incorporating God as partners, to shukr, thankfulness, gratitude. We know the biology of belief, the idea from Dr. Bruce Lipton, all of these things in our consciousness have an effect on our biology. It's not a joke. It's very serious. How you are in your personal life, you know, it's like you just have to, gaining that knowledge will keep you grounded, keep you more aware. Like the pulsar is not going to help you. The black hole is not going to increase your iman. It's going to do the opposite. You know, because that knowledge does not bring you closer to God, unfortunately.
Nor can you observe it. Nor can you observe it or even see it. Or you can just imagine it.
Yeah. The electric universe guys, they don't even touch black holes because there's no point. You can't observe them. You just, you know, that's from a scientific perspective. But from a religious perspective, I mean, the light is greater than the darkness. There should be no black holes ever.
But I
It's
guess I
not
want to
equal.
have a black hole in our brain, more like it.
Yeah, or in our hearts, you know.
Or in our hearts, even better said.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, this is a very fruitful presentation. Inshallah, we'll continue this. But unfortunately, time is running out. This is probably going on 2 hours. So, Jazakallah khair again, Brother Igor, for this amazing presentation. And we thank everyone for tuning in and watching all these presentations. And obviously wanted to thank Brother Owais and Brother Sami for continuing on with the war, I guess you could say. And
pleasure.
See you on the next one, inshallah.
Inshallah, we will see you guys on the next one.
Pleasure. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum assalam.